Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the very best version of yourself. And we're back with another episode. How are you feeling today, Cesar?
Pretty good. It's a good Sunday afternoon that we're filming this. It's been a good week. Crazy weather. I'm feeling good though, you know?
I feel like I could predict
everything that I'm going to say.
10 times out of 10 what you're going to say when I ask you,
Yeah.
how you doing, Cesar? It's always like, pretty good. I don't think you've ever said anything other than pretty good.
I'm pretty sure you can
I'm
make a
pretty sure
compilation.
he's pretty sure that he's pretty good.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can make a compilation of me saying pretty good or good every time we enter this podcast. So.
The question is, are you ever doing bad?
Probably, but I'm an optimist. I like to stay positive about things, so I try to stay.
Isn't that just being in denial if you say
No.
you're good and things are not good?
No, I mean, things can always be really bad, but this podcast is about growing, and I just feel like
You can be sad and growing.
you can. Yes, you can, not me.
You can. Okay, whatever. I'm excited for today's episode because I thought about it yesterday, which seems pretty last minute, but I do my best thinking when I've procrastinated. And I was thinking about relationships. You know, me and you were in a relationship, we're engaged. But at one point, we were just in that dating phase. And we live in a world where social media is also a huge part of relationships.
Yeah.
So my idea, like kind of what I want to talk about today, is that it's never just like you and me, it's you, me, and everyone on the internet because of like how relationships are today.
Do you mean like everybody else regarding just anyone on the internet? Like when you post something, is that what you mean? Like,
yeah. So like, I think that, some people will say there's 3 people in a relationship, you, the other person, and God. But in this case, I'm saying it's me, you, and literally everyone online, because especially if you share your relationship online, like I post pictures with you,
mm-hmm.
Like people are very aware that me and you together, which in some instances is a great thing, like to show each other off, right? But in another case, it causes it can cause friction in relationships, essentially, because like I can literally think of a conversation that me and you had where like social media was the concept of like the topic of the conversation, and it was like I was upset because at one point you never posted me on your Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I see.
That? Yeah, no, I remember this. Yeah, this was a long time ago.
Yeah. And okay. It's silly. It really is silly, but it's one of those things where it seemed like everyone that I knew that was in a relationship had a significant other that posted their significant other. And so I was like, you start to get in your head and you're like,
why is this person not
why
posting?
is he not? It's like some people, my mind didn't go here. Like I never in 100 years thought like you would cheat on me. So it didn't go there. But some people, if like you would be like, oh, he doesn't post her, they would assume that. They would assume like, oh, he's got another girl. That's why he doesn't want to post his main on his account,
Okay.
But I think it's not just that, but it's like it's the idea that your like when you post like that you're in a relationship with someone online or that kind of thing, you also start to compare your relationship to other people's relationships.
Yeah, because you're looking at maybe some influencer content creator you follow, and you're seeing like, oh my gosh, look how cute they are, or whatever the case is, and you're looking at like your significant other, and you're thinking, why does he not or she not post, those types of moments or whatever.
Or
the case is,
why don't they do this? Like this couple does this together.
Yeah,
why won't my person do this? And I think it can also like just distort like your reality too, because like say you're in a relationship and you're someone who's like chronically online and like say I post,
aka addicted to social media, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like chronically like online. Well, not like some people are chronically online in the sense that like for instance you're online for work. Or
yeah, of course.
So like some people are chronically online because it's a part of like their job. Or it's like creators, that is their job. But say I was someone who posted you every day, but I'm posting you because, for instance, I think people love to see our relationship content, which as you like would, and what I'm posting may not be an accurate like reflection of like our relationship, and like it may not, like we may like distort what our relationship is. You may stay with someone because you're not happy, or like because you want to be perceived some different way, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going with that, but I mean, not everyone is that way, I guess. But there's a lot of people.
I don't think that
that are
everyone.
that way.
I'm not saying that everyone is
Yeah.
this way. I'm just saying like it's one of those downsides of like social media is this thing that like there's so many different facets of it, and it impacts so many different areas of our lives. But it's also one of those things that has like it's kind of detrimental sometimes to relationship. Whether like, you know, we had that conversation like years ago about like, why don't you post me on your Instagram? But some people will go as far as to like, I don't want my significant other to like another woman's picture.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's
I've heard that too.
arguments started over that.
They're
and
like,
for
you
me-
like this person's picture or something like that?
Yeah, and
I've
for
seen-
me,
yeah.
like, I'm not super concerned about that. Like, you know, the point of like social media is to connect with like those that you know, or, you know, celebrities that too, like to follow them and like what they have going on. So like I'm not gonna get butthurt if you like a picture of like a pretty girl, but for some people those are things that they don't like. Because it makes them insecure. It makes them think like, well, if he's liking this, like maybe I'm not what he wants, you know?
Yeah, no, I see. I can see where that sort of some sort of issue like that could arise in certain relationships with people. I've heard like stories about that online. Like he like I broke up with him because he liked a picture of like some random person. I don't know. Maybe they were dating at one point, or maybe they were friends or something like that. Yeah, I get it. I understand that.
I mean, I don't think I've ever had like anyone in my life where like that was like actual like reason for breaking up, but it's definitely, I know, caused arguments in some of my friends' relationships. And the other thing is too is that it's just, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. It also allows for like this judgment that I don't think a lot of us are prepared for when we like put ourselves online. Like, even if you're not like an influencer or creator, but like you just, you know, you use social media for what it was invented for, was to like build connections. Is like, unfortunately, there are always people out there that's gonna judge you too, and judge your relationship for like what they're seeing. So, you know, I think there was a point where like I hadn't posted you in a while, and people were asking me like, are you still together?
Oh, yeah,
And it's
I
like,
do remember that.
well,
Yeah.
how do I have to post them to say like, hey, yeah, by the way, like, still here?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. That was a while back. I remember reading this study. This was like a long time ago. This is like 2000, maybe 16, where Facebook did like a study on obviously their own users, and they noticed that when somebody was in a relationship with someone else on Facebook, you know, when you put like in a relationship
Yeah.
with her or whatever the case is, that there's like a period of time after that relationship starts where both parties go dark, and it's like they get off of social. I don't know if it's still relevant nowadays. I'll have to find that paper or that report, but it was just saying how most couples do go dark off of social because they're going out and experiencing things in the real world, and not. And maybe
Like
some of
not-
them do post.
yeah.
Maybe some of them do post. You know, like constant. Oh, hey, me and my my boo or whatever's on. We're out at the lake or whatever the case is. But a lot of them just go dark because they're out there experiencing things and doing things together. They're not online all the time.
Yeah, and then the other thing is like, for instance, say you don't do that, and you kind of do the opposite, where like, I know when I, for those of you who don't know, I haven't had a lot of relationships in my life, and Caesar was one of basically my only real relationship I've had. So if you scroll through my current Instagram feed, a lot of the pictures are us. And I started to look at that, and it kind of gave me an identity crisis, like in the sense of like, I don't want people to think that I like don't have a personality without you, that
Oh.
I'm only like me when
Yeah.
I'm with you. Although Taylor Swift, you know, she has a song that says, I'm only me when I'm with you. I think
I have
that's
no
Taylor
idea
Swift.
what that song. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure, I'm gonna be so sad if that's not a Taylor Swift song. I'm pretty sure it's Taylor Swift. But yeah, I started to look at it and I was like, yeah, if someone came, I don't know if you ever do this, but I do this pretty frequently, of like looking at my Instagram feed as if I'm someone else and like thinking what would people think of if they saw this. Kind of like the same. I do the same thing with my LinkedIn profile. It's like if someone came across this, what would they think based on like my posts and based on what I've said?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, you're looking at it from a third person perspective.
Yeah,
obviously.
So I'm like trying to see, and so I started to get worried. I was like, I don't want people to think that like this sounds bad, like, but I need you. I mean, I love you, and I
love
like
you too, by the way.
But I don't want to seem like someone that's like codependent, which is something that like would upset me because I'm a functioning person without you.
Yeah.
But like if you looked at my Instagram, it's a lot of me and you. But you're also a central person in my life, you know. So if obviously we're with each other a lot, so it makes sense that most of my posts would be with you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, unless like you have a hobby and you like doing something on the side.
I mean, I do have hobbies.
I know you
do
have
said
hobbies.
Unless you have a hobby, I do.
No, I mean in the case of obviously there's.
I can't really post my hobbies. Like, hey, you want me to post pictures of books? Like, here's a book.
I mean, some people do that, but I mean, I'm just saying there's people that do, like whether they have a hobby or they have a large group of friends, girlfriends, or they have a group of guy friends they go hang out with.
Yeah, Caesar's always telling me I need to make friends. So.
I mean, I feel like you have.
No, we have
We
made some friends, which is so exciting. Okay, to be clear, I have friends. They just don't live here.
Yeah, they just don't live here. Yeah, they live in different states.
That's the struggle of like having moved to Vegas, where none of my friends also were, and then like moving here, where I also don't have friends. Now we're making friends. Like we have Kat, who lives in this apartment complex, and her boyfriend Elijah, and like that's nice. Like actually now have like people like to hang out with. But yeah, no, I mean, I get you, but like I was thinking about that, like how that looks online, and like judgment I've probably gotten for that, but also judgment because people just want to like throw their opinion online. I talked to my mom about this a lot, where, you know, on our podcast, we have this podcast, and sometimes I've said things, I guess, that people really disagree with, which is okay because we're all entitled to our opinions. But people have called me stupid and said all these things that you, like, the internet makes people so brave in a sense where, like, they're hiding behind someone, like, especially accounts, like, that are, you can't tell who they actually are, to say really mean things. And I think that even happens, though, not just with strangers on the internet, but, like, people, you know, I mean, it's gossip, you know, especially, like, I come from, like, kind of a smaller town, and so, a smaller town in Florida, and I remember being in high school and how people talked when someone posted something online, and, like, the drama around it. And I still think that happens, especially because social media makes it so much easier to, like, make a judgment based off someone and what they post about their lives.
Yeah, or whatever opinion they have. I mean, that's the thing about the internet, especially on Facebook. Just someone posting an opinion that that a large majority of people may or may not agree with. And then also depends on your circle of, but your friend group that you have on Facebook. That people may disagree with whatever it is that you're doing, or maybe someone that you're with. So there's a lot of that goes on online. I mean, it's like the history of the internet, you know, in regards to, the first argument on the internet probably happened on some forum. So just about someone talking about something, or maybe their relationship or whatever the case is. But
the best thing I learned, this is not really about the relationship piece of the social media, but the best thing I learned was to not partake in Facebook arguments. And I think you taught me that, because I was an arguer, man. Like, if I saw something I disagreed with, I was about to be typing up a storm, and then I just realized it's most likely pointless. I mean, I will say, because people will see this if they've gone to our account, I have replied to comments that were rude, but never in a way that was like, you suck, F you, none of that stuff, because that's not productive. But I will say, like, you know, like, here was like, let me explain more, because a lot of the time the comments are on our shorts, and there's not all the context to what we were saying. So I'm like, here, well, this is the context. So, like, and if you watch the full podcast episode, you'll see what we were talking about. And if you still disagree, that's fine. But yeah, I think with relationships, though, it kind of puts a dent in them. Like, I don't even know if puts a dent is the right term, but it definitely can have a negative impact in how we go about our relationships, and how we how we function in relationships.
I think it can. I think it will for the most part, unless you know how to navigate these sorts of waters in regards to, the everyone else online, in a relationship.
Yeah, and I think you've always been the person that's like, I don't care what people have to say.
Yeah.
But I'm always
You're the one that
care
doesn't
very
care.
much.
I mean, you're the one that does care what people have to say. Yes.
I mean, I guess I wanted to bring this up with you too, because you're someone who's, I say like you're not chronically online. You do obviously work for like a media company, so you're always having to figure out like what's going on YouTube, what's going on the other apps. But like personally, I feel like you don't use social media a ton.
Yeah, besides like my own content, and
you're not using it to like have fun.
I mean, have fun as in what regards though? Like, what do you mean by have fun?
Like, I mean, I enjoy scrolling through Instagram to see like what my friends are doing. I mean, I know you'll look at like videos online, but I feel like you're not actively interacting with people on social.
I would say probably like maybe like 5% of the time I'll interact with someone if I see something interesting. Like a friend of mine, for example. I mean, I call him my friend, but I've only met him online, right? It's funny how that works.
Who have you only met online?
There's a ton of people.
You've got a pen pal?
No, there's a ton of people that I've come across online through whether it was like a Facebook group, an Instagram account, and like we'll talk to each other back and forth. Or more recently, now people who have seen my content on my YouTube channel reach out to me and are like, "Hey,
can you help me with this?
I saw your video on the G7. I have this problem. Can you help me?" And I try my best to reply to these DMs and like even sometimes send them videos like using my camera. Like, this is where you have to go to find that XYZ. I try my best, but we're all busy. But yeah, like stuff like that, whether it's someone across the country or across the world.
But I guess what I mean is like, you're not going to go and like, if we're having a meal, like post a picture of it, or like you're only going to post something like if it's really, really cool. I feel like you don't post actively on those platforms.
I used to a lot. This is like a long time ago.
I feel like since we've been dating, which is like 5 years.
I'll have to show you my archive on Instagram because there's like.
You did archive a bunch of stuff.
I archived a crap ton of stuff. I've only deleted a few posts from Instagram. I just archived a bunch of stuff just to clean up my feed, just to kind of make it look, how you say,
aesthetically
pleasing. And it's actually funny because you just brought this up. You're thinking of like who's gonna see your Instagram and think of XYZ or whatever. So there's some random posts I have on there, but I guess I'm more careful on what I post in regards to just. I don't know. It has to be really meaningful. For example.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny that you say that, because that's what you said to me when we talked about you not posting on Instagram. And I was like, excuse me, is our relationship not meaningful? You said that exact thing, and it just like deja vu for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no. I always, whenever we went to like the beach, right? We'd go to California when we lived in Vegas. We would just drive like pre-COVID before COVID, we would just drive down California. Gas was cheap, just hang out at the beach and just come back, make it like a day trip. And those were always cool times. I have a bunch of those photos when we would go there. But nowadays, I just feel like we're all so busy with life and work that I haven't found some of those meaningful moments to post. I know we've had plenty of meaningful moments. I know we have. That's a fact. But I just haven't. My first thought is like when I have those meaningful moments is, let me pull my phone out and let me take a picture
enjoy
of
it.
Just enjoy it, Enjoy those times.
That is understandable. That is completely understandable. I also like, as I've grown older, I'm wise, 25 and wise. I've definitely kind of dwindled down, like not how much time I spend on social media. I still feel like I spend a good amount on social media, but what I do post is like pretty like far and few between. I also think the past 2 years I haven't posted a ton on like my personal account because I was going through a lot, and it wasn't something I necessarily wanted to share, because it's also something that online like Instagram and those other platforms can be such a highlight reel that like you don't want to like. I didn't want to seem like a Debbie Downer, if I had something sad to say or post online. So I definitely haven't posted as much. But I also like, that's the other thing, is I look through my feed, and obviously when I look through it and like, I'm me, these are my pictures, I know like what I felt when like a certain picture was taken, and I'm like, am I smiling and am I actually
Happy.
happy, or was I faking a smile? Like, because that used to
Yeah.
also be a thing too when these social media apps came out. We would take pictures just to post on Instagram. Like, oh, we
Yeah.
got to get one for the
Or videos
gram
or whatever
or
the
videos,
case,
and you
yeah.
wanted it because you wanted
Yeah.
to show people like how great your life was. And I think that goes around the same thing, is like people will showcase like their relationships, and it might make you feel like your relationship isn't like what it needs to be. But the truth is, like, everyone's relationship is so different, and like you can get like general relationship advice, but just because your relationship doesn't look like someone else's doesn't mean it's wrong. I know there have been so many people in my life would be like, well, this is what healthy looks like, or this is what is what should happen in a relationship. And like, for instance, like, you think that like, oh, if you're arguing all the time, that's a bad relationship. It's like, no, like, not necessarily. Like, for instance, if you don't argue at all, that might be bad, because like,
Yeah, no, I feel
you
like
might have just given up.
There's a reasonable way to argue with somebody, especially your significant other.
Like a productive
Yeah,
way.
it's like productive. So, but there are also obviously like ways that you should not argue with somebody, and that's like, you know, throwing stuff and, you know,
Yeah.
banging the door or whatever it is. A lot of fruit can come from an argument, I guess. You know.
Yeah, because I also thought about this topic because there's these, I don't know if you've ever seen these TikToks, but there's these TikToks where like people will go in there and be like, this is what we do in our relationship that works, and like, you know, just letting you know, not saying like, oh, you have to do this, but it all came about too because there was this creator, and their names are Matt and Abby, and he made a video about how he was taking care of like their son, and it was taken completely the wrong way, because they're like, well, that's what you should do. And basically, like, it was very like traditional, like it showed how like traditional that person's relationship was as to like what the roles are in relationships. Like, you know, usually like a mother like takes care of the baby and she cleans and cooks, and then the dad works. And people were bothered that it felt like their relationship took such a traditional route. And it's like, that's not for you to judge.
What?
Like, if that's how the relationship works, it is. But like, you can't like,
So people were criticizing them
people
on
were
TikTok?
upset
What?
about it, about how like their relationship looked, and like the way. And the thing is, like, I don't think I watched the video and I didn't get that vibe. It just seemed like a nice video. Like, he was cleaning up around the house, watching the baby, and like she was out like finally like taking some time to herself. But like, I guess people took it as like, you know, like they didn't like the roles that each of them played in the relationship, because it's so traditional, and because like, you know, we live in like such a modern world that I think people think that you have to be different and you can't revert back to like how relationships traditionally worked. But there's really no wrong way. You know, there's no wrong way. Like, you know, for me and you, like, I was just telling someone I work with about like our relationship, and how I'm like, well, I actually like doing most of the cleaning. I was like, except the bathroom and the dishes. I was like, usually Caesar does that, but then the other stuff, like, I want to do because I want it done a certain way. And then I was like, but if I cook dinner, Caesar does the dishes, and that's just something we've agreed on. And then we've also discovered that there's two types of people in this world. There's one who fills the Brita, and there's one who just waits for the other person to fill the Brita, and I'm the person who waits. So like, but that's how like our relationships work, and like, you're not over here yelling at me because I didn't fill the Brita.
No,
you know?
no. It's funny because I remember bringing that up. So like, wait, am I always filling up Brita? I didn't even realize it until I was like, oh, it's almost empty. Let me just fill it up before I go to work.
But we also, like, for instance, like, we also have a
That's funny.
relationship where like, if I asked you to cook something, you would. It's not like, oh no, you have to be the one to cook.
I mean, if anything, I've been wanting to cook, and you're like, no, I'll rather cook. I'm like, come on, let me cook some good steak or something like that. Or
Because that's the only thing that you can make is steak. But like, you gotta focus on the sides too. Like, you've got to be able to do the whole presentation. Otherwise, it just makes sense for me to cook the whole meal. That's how it works in my mind. But like, yeah, but you're never gonna be like, where's dinner when I get home? Because if you did, I'd be like, you can make some for yourself. Ramen it is. Like, but people, like, there are people though that are like have that relationship where it's like, I will always cook and have dinner ready, and like, or I will always take care of the kids, and that's fine. But it's funny that people like want to have a say in how other people do their relationship, and I think it's because like people are so, what they feel aware of what happens in others' relationships, especially like if you're an influencer on the internet. But I also think it can happen to like you or me, who are just like, have like our friends and connected with our friends.
That's a really good example of like me, you, and everyone else on the internet in regards to the topic of this conversation, and how if you were somebody who was easily influenced by others' opinions online, then you'd be like, wait, I'm doing something wrong. And then you go and try to correct your partner because someone on the internet told you you're doing something wrong. And then the whole time it's actually healthy for you guys to be interacting in this relationship that way.
And the thing is,
and then next thing you know, you guys broke up or whatever. I don't know.
We fell for what someone else had to say, and maybe it wasn't the right thing for you. It also applies to, like, I don't think just for relationships, but social media in general, like, I feel like can make you feel as if you're having an identity crisis. And I know I brought that up earlier, but...
How so? What do you mean?
Like, I feel like especially when you're in your 20s, you're trying to figure out who you are, and we've talked about this. You're trying to figure out who you are and who you're meant to be. And if you're someone who is easily influenced, you might end up being persuaded and thinking like, this is who I need to be. Like if you see someone who's a gym rat, and not necessarily like it's bad to be a gym rat. Like it's not like super great, but you might develop these habits and then wake up one day and be like, this is not who I am, but it's who I thought I was supposed to be because all the things that I was consuming was centered around this, Or... And not to say, like, it's not good to be influenced to do, like, certain things. Like, I'm on running TikTok, and me and you are going to run a marathon in October. So seeing those videos makes me, like, more inspired, and I want to, run the way I see people on TikTok run. But
learn, like, techniques and, like, things of that nature.
Yeah, right? And just also, like, enjoy it. The thing is, I at one point enjoyed running, and now I'm getting back into it. I'm trying to enjoy it again. But it's, like, you might compare yourself to, like, for instance, if this person can run a mile in, under 6 minutes, you might compare yourself, like, why can't I do that? Like, oh, I suck at this. And it might stop you entirely, It just shows, again, how social media affects us. But, like, I think back to relationships, I think, I'm trying to think of any, like, positive impact it could have. Like, can you think of anything that, like, positively would come from social media and, like, online?
Yeah, I mean... I think a lot of positive... I'm a true believer that there's a lot more good things happening in the world than there are bad things. I think social media is a way for the bad to be easily highlighted, and a lot of bad things end up going viral because they're obviously really bad things, right? That happened or have happened. But there's not a lot of good things that get highlighted because there's like... Actually, there's probably quite a bit of good things that get highlighted and go viral sometimes, like those little cute stories you see of a dog being rescued from being abandoned in the street. Like this dog's legs were broken. It was like such a sad, like an inspiring thing to see, like the animal like get recovered and rehabilitated. Like those are really cool things that are highlighted in video and go viral. So that's just one I would say, like right there.
But for
relationships, I think online. I think there's a couple of accounts that I can think of where they talk about like things that can make your relationship better, or how to live a fruitful life with your significant other. I would even say this podcast is also a positive thing for the internet too as well. Yeah, just saying, Growing Together podcast, and Instagram. We're on TikTok. And YouTube, obviously, and wherever you go and listen to podcasts, you stream, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. But anyways, yeah. So there's a lot of other accounts like what we do, maybe in a different fashion. They're just not as big and influential as what you see on your TikTok feed or on YouTube. I know there's a few like relationship podcasts that have gone viral for many different ways, many different reasons. But yeah, I would say there is a lot of positive stuff out there. You just gotta. I think sometimes we get so caught up in all of the negative and all of these crazy stories going on in our day, throughout the week, that we forget about like that one significant person or that one individual online that you like to hear about, like their story or their relationships. I know, like you, for example, there's this influencer couple that you follow, and they're still together, right? They got like in a car, or they got hit by a car.
Oh yeah, Kristen and Marcus.
Yeah, and they're like a positive influence, wouldn't you say?
No, but I'm talking about like an influence on my relationship. Like, what if like I'm saying like what positive impact does like social media have on relationships?
That's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, I do feel.
I think, like, for instance, like, maybe you connected with someone. Maybe you end up with finding your soulmate because you found them online.
Online, yes.
So,
that's
like,
one.
That'd be something.
That's a good one.
The other side of that is maybe you met someone really shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be you met your, like, the worst person that you thought ever, or whatever the case is. But, no, I mean, I do think that we would be better off without social media if there was a button you can push to like just disconnect everything.
I don't think that. Like even despite like the like all the main purpose is I would always like you said, like think of the positive. I think that the original intent and what it still does to an extent is connect people. Like it connect Facebook, like MySpace, like but like when for instance when I started on Facebook, it was a way to talk to like my family that didn't live near me and see what's going on in their lives. I still think it does hold that purpose for some people. So I don't think I'd want to like eliminate it entirely because I think if used the right way, it's great. I mean, for instance, like people have essentially monetized their relationships, you know, like they've created businesses together because of like sharing their relationships online and being vulnerable and also like I think if you consume the right stuff online, and like I say right very loosely because I feel like that's subjective to a sense. But I feel like if you're consuming what's healthy for you, it'll work out in your favor. But the flip side is that sometimes we consume things without knowing that how it's gonna shape the way we think. Because so many of the things we do consume on the day-to-day shape the way we see ourselves, shape the way we see our relationships, and shape the way that we see others. So if those are like have negative connotations to them, it's gonna negatively impact those three things: how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we see our relationships. So you have to become self-aware in understanding what's good and what isn't, and what's not going to serve you and what is going to serve you. And so like when it comes to being online and for instance being in a relationship, like for instance I was reading kind of about this topic beforehand and one of it was like, should you like for instance like if you have an ex, should you stay connected with them, especially like if it didn't end on great terms, or like should you just sever that tie because it might be better for you. So I think it's like taking steps like that and like knowing. For instance, we talked about how you had never posted me online when we were first dating. That's something that you do now. You know, it's like knowing, like, as silly as it seemed, like that was something that at that moment was important to me. It's not as important to me now. But knowing, for instance, me and you know each other, and we know, like, our intentions of social media. Like, knowing the intention of the other person and why they're on there. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, if you're using social media to do some shady shit, like obviously that's not good. But you know, me and you, we use it a lot now to like promote, like for instance, this podcast, or you have your YouTube channel, or really just catch up with friends. So like in that sense, like it's not really damaging our relationship. It could though if I started to like see if I started to feel like a certain way about the way you interacted online. But, you know, I don't imagine that I ever would.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to take in. Just regarding the whole social aspect of social media, obviously, and how it can affect a relationship is, I think, can be a whole topic. It could be a whole podcast on that.
I mean, that's what this podcast is.
No, I mean, obviously, the title of this podcast is You, Me, and Everyone Online.
Well, yeah, because everyone online is like all of social media. Like we're basically not just alone in relationships, or you know, it's like two's a party, three's a crowd. It's like, oh, I feel like relationships can get crowded and clouded with the judgment from online or the influences of being online or all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what I had wanted to touch on, was just how in today's age it feels like you can't have like a relationship without everyone online having some say, unless like you're just not online.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was literally going to bring up, is the only way unless you said it, unless you're just not online, and you and your significant other just delete all social media, and there you go. That solves that problem.
But then you think, okay, for instance, let me just go down that rabbit hole. You delete all your stuff. Say me and you went dark. We delete all of our stuff. Because we were on it, people are going to think some mad shit about what happened. They're either going to think we broke up, or we're like going to be like underground, like
hiding in a bunker.
Yeah, like, just doing that thing. So I feel like even if you're not online, if someone is online, you're still somehow connected,
Yeah, someone's going to say, whatever happened with this person, and they're like, oh, they're okay. Like someone's going to bring you up somehow online. Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, I understand. So
it's like you or like your relationship might always be a topic of conversation for others. And I think the main point too is like, I guess you kind of have to be okay with that to an extent. Like that kind of bothered me for a long time. It's like, I don't want anyone talking about me and you, because like we're just doing us, we're just doing the damn thing. Like I don't need anyone to like have an opinion or say, because it's not the relationship. But I can't control who wants to judge us, who does judge us. And that's something I've had to learn over the course of a relationship, is that people always have shit to say. So you kind of just have to be okay with it in a sense, and just like deal with it with grace. And or like your mom likes to say, you cover yourself in oil and it just all slips off.
Let all the words, everything, all the opinions just slide right off of you.
Yeah. So I feel like that's, no matter like if you're actually actively online, I know that like there's people who always have something to say about your relationship, or you might be influenced to think that your relationship needs to be some way, and it doesn't really need to be. Like I think about our relationship all the time, and the truth is I don't know about other people's relationships. I don't know, like when we get into an argument, I'll think to myself, was it normal that we just argued about that? Or like, then you might think to yourself, oh, this couple, do I think that they do that? And it's like, wait, who the fuck cares? Like, it doesn't matter. This is our relationship. And again, you only see like the certain sides of, the perfect relationships, because I doubt people share online. Like, yeah, we argue every fucking night. Like no one really will share the negative sides of the relationship.
You only hear about those things, and like when something really bad happens, or it's like like a, what do you call it? A true crime story or something like that.
Oh, Jesus, that got morbid.
No, I mean that's the only time I've ever heard like on like, I don't know what it was we were watching the other day, but like the neighbors were like, yeah, they were always doing XYZ or whatever the case is. When it's like, I'm talking about something extreme. I'm not talking about like anyone that I've ever even our relationship, but I'm just saying like we only ever hear that sort of thing when it's like a true crime story, where it's something like, yeah, they would always bang on the door. I would hear like someone always dropping something. I never knew what it was, or something like that. Sorry to get morbid, but
I'm really hesitant though. Just like a little side off, I'm really hesitant to believe like neighbors in those situations.
You've heard those, right? The neighbors and like true crime stories. Yeah.
Really, like, why didn't you say something sooner then? If this was happening all the time, like,
because they thought, because it was like the bystander effect, where you think it's like, oh, it's normal, or you just kind of like, huh, I wonder what that was.
Or like you're mishearing. Maybe that's just how they speak to each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Like, I'm not saying we have neighbors that speak pretty loud, but we do. Yeah. And I'm like, it's just kind of how they thought, like where they're from, right?
Yeah.
So to other people, it might be like they're yelling at each other, but no, that's how they normally talk. That's their like they're Cuban or Colombian or something like that. So.
Yeah, but no one ever really shares like no one. I'm saying like yeah, in that true crime sense, like other people were sharing about what they thought about this relationship. Once again, judging a relationship that they were not a part of.
Exactly.
But you don't really hear people go online and say like, yeah, this is what happens in our relationship, because like no one wants to share like the gory details of like arguments or like disagreements or just the not so pretty like sides of relationships, which I mean I feel like there's a few, just not great sides of relationships.
Yeah. I'd say that too. I'd say that's 100%.
What do you think they are?
What?
The not so great sides.
There's not so great sides to every individual out there, including myself. that we all get to learn. We're like there are quirks and features.
Quirks and features.
You know, and it's something that you get used to, I guess, right? Or you learn how to navigate that. You know.
So Caesar telling me that I'm difficult to deal with.
I'm not saying that at all. You're saying that.
He's learned to tread the waters. No, but I think that, it's an interesting time to have any type of relationship, whether it's friendships or like just, relationships in general. I remember I couldn't imagine dating now. I mean, we dated when, social media was still a thing. So like, it's not like it's completely different, but.
No, it's funny that you bring that up though, because I remember reading or hearing someone or a couple people online talk about how it's like those dating podcasts that I was talking about, how they can't imagine themselves dating right now because of how crazy it is. Like regarding the whole social media aspect of a relationship, like literally what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, because there's this thing called like soft launching your partner. Like for instance, if
what?
because for instance, I had this happen to me in high school. So there was this one guy I really liked, and we weren't like really dating or anything, but we were pretty good friends. And then this person stopped coming around. And my mom was like, whatever happened to so-and-so? And then, you sigh, and you're like, and you're sad. And so you don't want people to ask about it. So you don't introduce the person, you're into automatically.
To, your family and
to,
friends.
Your family or anything, or online. So, you don't have to go through that, process of, if you break up.
It's called soft launching.
So you soft launch them, you might show their hand holding yours, but you won't ever show their face. And then a hard launch. It's so silly. I can't believe I'm talking about this right now. But a hard launch is you post them. You're it's basically saying, yeah, we're official now, and I want the world to know. But there's a period people have in relationships where they don't want that, because if something were to happen, going through the having to take the pictures down, and then again people talk oh my gosh, they deleted the pictures, they must have broken, it's this whole thing. So it really would suck to date right now, because the world's also watching you in a sense of and I think it's also for instance, when you get older in your 20s, your parents are asking I know your parents ask Noah, oh, do you have a girlfriend? Or when you have kids, it becomes then people get into that aspect of okay, you've settled down, you're married. When are you going to have kids? Oh, they haven't had kids yet. Oh, all this kind of thing. So people, no matter what stage you are, whether you're dating, engaged, or married, there's always something to say. So.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at that point I'd rather stay single. If I had to go through all that stuff. Yeah, no, seriously. That's ridiculous.
Caesar's I don't want a soft launch. No, it's just crazy. It's a different time, and I don't think that just has to do with social media. It just has to do also just with how dating has evolved over time. That's just a whole different ballgame now as well. But that's pretty much today's conversation. If you've enjoyed this episode, or really any of our episodes, you should definitely subscribe, because we upload every single Monday, usually at 8 a.m. And we're going to continue to have these conversations. We want to continue to grow as individuals, and you're never done growing.
Never done growing. There's always room to grow.
Always room to grow. You're always gonna outgrow your current pot and plant yourself in a new one. So that's been today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Please give us this video a like. Please subscribe, rate our podcast if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms. It seriously helps us. And this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.